They don't want you to know how powerful you actually are, because if you did, the world as you know it would collapse overnight. Psychic powers aren't fiction, they're forgotten. Your intuition, telepathy, remote viewing, even the ability to shift probabilities, they're not rare gifts. They're native faculties, sleeping in plain sight. Since childhood, you've been told to shut up, sit still, memorize, and never question what's possible. That wasn't guidance. That was suppression. What if the thoughts in your head weren't just noise but frequencies? What if the images in your mind weren't imagination but early-stage creation? You've been trained to laugh at psychic ability, to write it off as mysticism or madness. But deep down, you've always known something was off. Like you were meant to remember something that no one ever taught you. You are not here to observe reality. You are here to command it. This isn't a lesson. This is an initiation. And it starts now. You were taught that thoughts live inside your head, private echoes bouncing in your skull, harmless and self-contained. But that was the first lie. Thought is not passive. It's not invisible. It's not even yours in the way you've been led to believe. Thought is energy. It vibrates, it radiates, it reaches. And like electricity through a wire or a broadcast signal through open air, your thoughts don't stay inside you. They move outward, shaping the fabric of your reality without your permission, and often without your awareness. The world doesn't happen to you, it responds to you. Every emotion you feel, every image you replay, every belief you carry projects into the world like a magnet attracting its match. You're not just reacting to the day, you're summoning it unconsciously. That awkward conversation that spiraled into chaos, that stroke of unexpected luck, that tension in your chest mirrored by a tense morning at work, none of it is random. You're emitting a frequency, and reality, loyal and blind, answers that frequency with precision. The moment you understand this, really understand it, you stop being a passenger in your life. You realize you've been holding the wheel the entire time. Most just don't know they're steering. And this isn't just some cute spiritual phrase. It's the law. A broadcast always returns with a signal, and your thoughts are not whispers, they are blueprints. You've already seen this. The day you woke up anxious and everything felt off. The time you walked into a room and shifted its mood without speaking. The rush of coincidence that followed a moment of deep clarity. That wasn't fate, that was you. Every experience in your life is an echo of your inner state. But if thought is this powerful, why don't more people use it consciously? Because most aren't thinking. They're looping, repeating inherited narratives, absorbed fears, borrowed desires. They aren't thinking. They're remembering what the world told them to want, to fear, to expect. And when you recycle the same inner story, you recycle the same outer life, again and again, until you start to wonder if maybe this is just how life is. It's not. It's just how your thoughts are. And here's where everything changes. The moment you stop treating thought as chatter and begin to treat it as command, the shift begins. You step into the space where reality is shaped not later, not with effort, but with alignment. And this is where the real work begins. Not in trying to manifest a wish, but in becoming the frequency that makes it inevitable. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you consistently are. When you realize thought isn't internal, you stop taking it so personally. You begin to train it, like breath, like a muscle. You notice what tone you wake up with. You become sensitive to the emotional charge behind your desires. And soon, you'll notice that reality bends in small ways. Delays disappear, resistance fades, synchronicities surge. This is the beginning of psychic development. Not flashy magic tricks, but invisible cause meeting visible effect. At first, it's subtle. Then it becomes undeniable. This is what we call the first pulse. The first pulse is the moment your mind begins emitting a new signal, one that is not dictated by the world, but chosen by your will. It is the threshold where your inner vibration starts aligning with a reality you were previously locked out of. The shift isn't loud, it's not dramatic, it's not even immediate, but it's precise. You start to notice that your inner state is no longer a secret. It's reflected in your conversations, your health, your timing, your outcomes. Thought stops being a reaction and becomes a tool, a blade, a current. And once you experience that first pulse, the door to the rest opens. You no longer live waiting for permission, for signs, for someone to validate your next step. You begin to sculpt the day with deliberate tone. You become the tuning fork instead of the noise. You realize the most powerful force in your life isn't what you do, it's what you think repeatedly, emotionally, and with conviction. You are not just a person navigating a world, you are a signal shaping it. The first pulse is just the beginning. Most people believe they are thinking. They're not. They're being thought by the world, by habit, by 1,000 silent voices they never chose but carry like second skins. Walk down any street, sit in any classroom, scroll through any feed, and you'll see it. Thought is not sovereign there. It's reactive, fragmented, scattered like leaves in the wind. The average mind is not a commander but a captive, running loops it didn't write, chasing feelings it can't explain, fearing outcomes it's already scripted in advance. This is the hidden architecture of modern life. Your mind has been colonized, not with chains, but with noise, conditioning, repetition, suggestion. You're told what to want, what to fear, what to admire. You're trained to silence the inner voice unless it agrees with the dominant narrative. And when you do try to think for yourself, to feel a truth deeper than the noise, the world rushes in to correct you. It calls you irrational, selfish, naive. And slowly, piece by piece, you abandon the throne of your own awareness. You become a follower in your own mind. But the throne never disappears. It waits silent, centered, untouched by the tides of thought. That throne is your birthright. It is not built on logic or emotion, but awareness, not the kind of awareness that watches quietly in meditation and then forgets, but the awareness that chooses where to place attention, what thoughts to allow, what beliefs to dismantle. Sovereignty begins not with control but with clarity. It is the recognition that you are not your passing moods, your fleeting urges, or your recycled fears. You are the one who sees them, the one who can command them. You are the eye behind the noise. When you begin to live from that eye, everything changes. You no longer panic when fear arises. You don't spiral when doubt creeps in. You see them, name them, and let them pass like weather. And slowly, the winds lose their grip. The inner throne becomes more than an idea. It becomes your seat of power, a place you return to with every breath, every decision, every moment of awareness. From there, you don't fight the mind, you direct it. You don't obey emotion, you refine it. You don't get pulled by the world's endless emergencies. You observe, choose, and act with intention. The world does not teach this. It teaches you to obey. It rewards you for repeating what you've been told. It celebrates agreement and punishes disruption. And so, most people never meet their true mind. They live in the outer layers, reactions, opinions, borrowed thoughts. They speak from memory, not from knowing. But when you step back just once and ask, who is thinking this thought? You tear a hole in the veil. You create space. And in that space, sovereignty is born. Reclaiming the throne is not about becoming cold, rigid, or mentally distant. It's about becoming deliberate. It's about choosing your mental environment with the same care you choose the people in your home. You stop tolerating the inner critic. You stop hosting doubt as if it were wisdom. You stop entertaining guilt as if it were truth. The sovereign mind is not obsessed with positivity. It's rooted in truth. And truth, when felt clearly, is quiet, focused, and uncompromising. Once you begin living from that center, psychic development becomes inevitable, because now your energy isn't being drained by contradiction. Your will isn't being scattered across 100 half-beliefs. You become aligned, and alignment is what unlocks the faculties that once seemed mythic. Intuition sharpens, insight pierces deeper, and the world responds to your presence, not just your actions. This is why the ancients didn't separate magic from discipline or power from awareness. They knew that before one could move objects, they must master attention. Before one could perceive beyond the veil, they must clear the fog within. The mind is the temple, the will is the priest, and thought, when placed upon the altar with clarity, becomes invocation. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more sovereignty. And it starts with this. Sit upon the throne of your mind, not as a tyrant, not as a child, but as the silent architect who knows that every thought permitted is a seed, and the world you walk through tomorrow will grow from what you allow to root today. You've been taught to fear your emotions, to treat them like flaws, malfunctions, or dangerous storms that should be hidden, silenced, or medicated. But the truth is, your emotions are not obstacles. They are energy, raw and unfiltered, waiting to be shaped. Anger, fear, jealousy, shame, these aren't signals that something is wrong with you. They are invitations, signals of untapped power, unprocessed truth, and unrealized potential. The system that raised you never taught this because emotional sovereignty is the gateway to real freedom. And freedom is the one thing the system can't sell, tax, or control. Emotional alchemy begins when you stop asking how to get rid of uncomfortable feelings and start asking what they're made of. Fear, at its root, is perception sharpened by uncertainty. Anger is love poisoned by injustice. Jealousy is a signpost toward your own forgotten desires. These aren't enemies. Their elements lead: iron, mercury. And as any alchemist knows, base metal isn't useless. It's the material through which gold is made, but only if you learn to work with it. Most people don't. They repress, suppress, or explode. They avoid emotional discomfort like a virus, not realizing that avoidance is what gives it power. When you suppress a feeling, you don't neutralize it, you amplify it. You drive it deeper into the subconscious, where it begins to shape your thoughts, your choices, your frequency. The feeling doesn't disappear. It embeds itself. And from there, it begins to vibrate below the surface, sending out signals you're not even aware you're transmitting. This is why your emotional state matters more than your intentions. You can visualize success, speak affirmations, recite mantras, but if your dominant emotional frequency is fear or lack, those words are static. The signal doesn't get through. Reality doesn't respond to what you pretend to feel. It responds to what you actually are. This is the forgotten principle behind all psychic power. Your emotional state is the charge behind your thoughts. It's the voltage that fuels your signal. And when you master it, you don't just feel better, you become a generator. So how do you transmute? First, you observe. Not judge, not analyze, just observe. You feel fear rising in your chest. You don't label it failure. You breathe. You watch it. You hold space for it. You say, "This is energy. I'm not here to be ruled by it. I'm here to transform it." That space, that pause, is the crucible. Inside it, you change form. Anger becomes clarity. Grief becomes depth. Shame becomes humility. And the more you do this, the more your emotional body begins to trust you. It stops erupting. It starts communicating. And you become not a reactor, but a refiner. The truth is, your emotional body is one of your greatest psychic tools. It can detect lies before they're spoken. It can sense outcomes before they arrive. But only when it's clear. Most people's emotional field is like a fog, thick with old wounds, stagnant reactions, and unspoken needs. To develop real psychic clarity, you need emotional clarity. Not numbness, not detachment, clarity. The ability to feel fully without being consumed, to sense deeply without getting lost. This is the art of emotional alchemy. There will be days where the feelings hit hard, where your chest tightens, your thoughts race, and your nervous system sounds the alarm. That's not a weakness. That's the system surfacing. That's old patterns trying to rerun their loops. But now you're awake. Now you know that every time you sit with a difficult feeling without reacting, without collapsing, without outsourcing your power, you're breaking a chain. You're choosing evolution over survival, creation over reaction. Over time, this becomes instinct. You don't fear emotions. You listen to them. You don't suppress them. You redirect them. You begin to feel more, not less. But with that feeling comes freedom, because now, nothing inside you owns you. You own it. And when you reach that state, your psychic signal becomes clean, precise, magnetic. You stop manifesting chaos. You stop repeating old cycles. You stop leaking power. And in that clarity, your intuition awakens, not as a voice you strain to hear, but as a knowing you can no longer deny. Alchemy is not a myth. It's a method. And your emotions are not the problem. They are the material. The question is, will you burn them, bury them, or refine them into light? There is no psychic ability without focus. None. You can flood your mind with affirmations, surround yourself with crystals, read every ancient text, but if your attention is scattered, your power is scattered. Concentration is not a luxury. It is the blade of the mind. Without it, thought is a fog. With it, thought becomes a weapon precise, sharp, and transformative. The modern world does everything it can to steal this from you. Your phone, your feed, your inbox, your environment, all designed to fracture your attention into fragments so small they can be manipulated without resistance. A distracted mind is a compliant mind, and that's no accident. Because the moment you reclaim your attention, you reclaim your life. You reclaim your will. And the will, focused and unshaken, is what bends reality. Concentration is not about tension. It is not clenching your jaw, squinting your eyes, and forcing the mind to sit still. True concentration is devotion. It is stillness with purpose. It is the ability to rest your mind fully in one place, one image, one intention, without drifting, without breaking, without reacting. When your attention holds steady, your energy condenses, your frequency stabilizes, and what once took effort begins to respond with ease. Most people have never experienced this. They don't realize they're leaking energy through constant redirection, known second here, 1 second there, endlessly pulled by sound, movement, thought, impulse. But when you begin to train your attention, even for minutes at a time, you start to feel something shift. Your thoughts become less noisy. Your nervous system stops bracing. Your inner world becomes quieter, but not empty clear. This clarity is where psychic ability starts to crystallize. You begin to notice thoughts that aren't yours before they fully enter. You feel impressions before words are spoken. Your visualizations stop being blurry concepts and start becoming vivid, magnetic blueprints. This is not imagination. This is creation at the formative level. And the only reason most people never touch it is because their mind won't hold still long enough to build the bridge. Start small. Focus on a single word, image, breath, anything. Not because the thing itself matters, but because the act of staying matters. You're not meditating to feel calm. You're training to build voltage. And over time, your attention becomes a force, a signal that doesn't waver, a current that doesn't short-circuit. You stop broadcasting mixed messages to the universe. You become single-minded, not in obsession, but in intention. The concentrated mind has a presence. You walk into a room, and the atmosphere bends. You think of someone, and they call. You hold a vision, and life begins to shape around it. This isn't supernatural. It's alignment. You've stopped scattering your energy across 1,000 unconscious channels and begun directing it with precision. Psychic power is not chaos. It is structure. It is clarity. It is focus honed until the unseen responds like the seen. Concentration is the forge where thought becomes reality. It is the forgotten discipline behind every intuitive hit, every prophetic dream, every energetic command. Without it, you're guessing. With it, you're creating. The mind will fight you at first. It will drift, resist, rebel. That's not failure, that's the detox. Years of mental noise don't dissolve overnight. But every time you pull your attention back, every second you hold your focus when the world tries to distract you, you're building power silent, steady, undeniable. This is the hidden reason so many ancient disciplines, from martial arts to magic to mysticism, begin with concentration. Because it doesn't just build psychic skill, it rebuilds you. It burns away mental chaos, it clears the path between thought and outcome, and when that path is clear, you don't need to push, you don't need to chase. You simply focus, and things move. Concentration is not about force, it is about alignment. It is about cutting through the noise until only signal remains. And when your mind becomes a blade, your reality follows. Desire is not weakness. It's not longing or lack or blind craving. Real desire is voltage. It's the pulse that calls unseen reality into form. Every psychic ability, every intuitive flash, every manifestation, every act of energetic influence is powered by it. Not just by the wish for something to happen, but by the inner current that makes it inevitable. Without desire, thought has no fuel. It becomes static, weak, weightless. But when desire is clean, when it is aligned, focused, and certain, it generates a field strong enough to reshape what's real. You've been taught to be suspicious of your desires, that wanting too much is greedy, that passion is dangerous, that contentment means needing nothing. But contentment without motion is stagnation. You were not born to be still. You were born to emit. You were born to want not from emptiness, but from remembrance. Your true desires aren't pulled from advertising or insecurity. They are echoes of what your soul already knows is possible. And when you align with one of those, the universe doesn't hesitate. It rearranges itself. Desire becomes magnetic when it stops coming from fear. That's the key. Most people desire out of panic. They want money because they fear poverty. They want love because they fear loneliness. They want recognition because they fear invisibility. And the signal they send is not the desire, it's the fear beneath it. That's what the world responds to. So they struggle, they hustle, they pray, but their reality remains unchanged because the frequency hasn't shifted. They're still broadcasting the wound, not the truth. But when you tap into true desire, desire that comes from clarity, not desperation, you become unstoppable. Because then your thoughts carry conviction. Your vision isn't hopeful, it's anchored. You're not trying to get something. You're calling it into place. There's no begging in this energy, no grasping, only alignment. And alignment is what bends probabilities. Picture a singer hitting a note so pure it shatters glass. That's what aligned desire does to the fabric of reality. It resonates, it cuts through the noise. And the more sustained it is, the more matter reshapes around it. Not because you're forcing it, but because you've become a living signal, and the universe, by law, responds. This is why desire without focus is dangerous. It leaks, it burns out, it turns to obsession, and obsession clouds clarity. But when desire is paired with attention, when it becomes deliberate, it becomes frequency, and frequency is the real force behind psychic phenomena. You don't just feel drawn to something, you become the gravitational field that pulls it in. You've seen glimpses of this. The moment you knew something was coming and it did, the strange ease of a situation unfolding when you were fully relaxed and certain. That wasn't chance. That was resonance, a flash of your potential to live as a signal, not as a seeker. To develop real psychic power, you must start here, with what you want, with what you're willing to declare, not with noise, but with knowing. You must hold your desire long enough for it to become identity. You must feel it so clearly that doubt no longer sticks, so consistently that resistance has nowhere to land. This is not about visualizing once and walking away. This is about breathing it, walking with it, becoming it, until the line between want and reality dissolves. The truth is, most people don't fail because they want too much. They fail because their desire is scattered, half-held, whispered instead of declared. The universe doesn't respond to hesitation, it responds to frequency. And frequency is only created through sustained, intentional desire. Desire is sacred. It is the electric fingerprint of your soul's purpose. And when you stop outsourcing it, when you stop diluting it to make others comfortable, you'll begin to see how powerful you've always been. Desire is not the enemy, it's the engine. And once you learn to direct it, everything begins to move. Most people think transformation happens in moments, lightning strikes, breakthroughs, spontaneous awakenings. But real change doesn't arrive with a bang, it arrives in rhythm. It moves quietly beneath the surface, in the grooves your thoughts carve every single day. Habit is not just behavior. Habit is frequency made permanent. It's the tone your nervous system hums in the background, shaping your perception, your reactions, and your psychic signal without asking for permission. You can hold a powerful thought once, and it changes nothing. But think it 10, 0 times, and it becomes a filter, a lens, a script your reality begins to follow. Repetition is the architect of belief. Whether conscious or not, is the blueprint your life builds itself around. That's the hidden truth. You don't get what you affirm once. You get what you affirm consistently, especially when you're not even aware you're doing it. Look at your life. Look at your patterns. The way you speak about yourself. The stories you tell when no one's around. The thoughts you return to in stillness. These are not harmless leftovers of experience. They are instructions. Every loop you let run unchecked is programming your field. Every emotional reaction you indulge, every self-concept you rehearse, it all adds weight. And the more often you think something, the easier it is to think it again. The mind folds where it's been folded before. This is where power is either leaked or built. Because psychic development isn't just about single moments of clarity. It's about creating a mind and body that hold the signal, that don't default to fear when things shake, that don't collapse under pressure or crave outside validation. To have extraordinary perception, you must build extraordinary mental stability, and that's only possible through habit, through repetition, through inner training no one sees. Every master knew this. The mystics, the magicians, the adepts, they didn't chase peak moments. They built foundations. They repeated certain thoughts, held certain postures, performed rituals not because of superstition, but because of rhythm. They knew that the subconscious isn't convinced by insight. It's convinced by what it sees daily, by what it feels in the body, by what it hears in your voice, again and again, until doubt becomes silence and truth becomes your new ground. The modern world avoids this. It celebrates quick results, instant manifestations, surface-level affirmations. But the universe isn't listening to what you say once. It's listening to what you practice, what you embody, what you keep returning to, even when no one's watching, especially then. So if you want to build psychic strength, stop asking for dramatic signs. Start mastering your mental atmosphere. Pick a frequency: calm, clarity, courage, and impress it into your being. Speak it, think it, live in it. Not perfectly, but persistently. Each time you choose that thought over an old one, you're folding the mind differently. Each repetition is a vote for your future self. And the day will come when something challenges you and you don't flinch, you don't fall into doubt. You respond from your new groove. That won't be a miracle. It'll be momentum. Habit is the great equalizer. You don't need to be born gifted. You don't need to be the most intuitive person in the room. You need to train not for an hour, but for a lifetime, until the frequency of your desire becomes the background music of your life, until holding focus is your default, until alignment isn't something you chase, it's the ground you walk on. The true adepts aren't obsessed with powers, they're obsessed with refinement, because they know that the ability to influence energy, to perceive beyond the 5 senses, to shift reality is not born in the spectacular, it's born in the repeated. And if your habits aren't aligned with that power, it doesn't matter how many books you read or how much you believe, the signal will stay weak. But if your daily rhythm matches the future you seek, nothing can stop it. This is where the invisible work becomes visible, where unseen effort turns into seen transformation, where habit stops being a chore and becomes a sacred rhythm. Repetition is not boring, it is holy. It is how you tell the universe, I'm not just curious, I'm committed. And when that commitment is embedded in your nervous system, the world begins to respond in kind. What if the events of your life weren't random? What if what you call luck, coincidence, or even divine timing was never about chance at all, but precision? What if psychic ability didn't rely on mystical luck or chaotic flashes of insight, but on alignment with invisible laws just as real and strict as gravity? You weren't born to be ruled by accidents. You were born to become an agent of cause. There is a fundamental illusion that keeps most people disempowered. The idea that life happens to them, that outcomes are arbitrary, that miracles are rare exceptions instead of reflections of a deeper structure. But when you truly grasp this one truth, that the universe does not operate by chance, But by law, you stop reacting and start creating. Not blindly, not hopefully, deliberately. The law is simple. What you expect, not just wish, not just imagine, but fundamentally expect is what gets mirrored back to you. This isn't positive thinking. It's psychic engineering. Your expectations are frequencies. They are not invisible requests. They are commands written in the emotional tone you hold, the posture of your nervous system, the certainty, or lack of it, in your bones. And the universe listens to that tone, not your words. This is why so many people struggle with manifestation. They do the rituals, they say the affirmations, they visualize the outcomes, but underneath it all, they still expect disappointment. They hope but don't believe. They ask but don't align. So nothing moves, because energy doesn't respond to surface-level input. It responds to the deep code, to what you carry when no one is watching. That code is shaped by law. The law of vibration, the law of assumption, the law of resonance. These aren't abstract ideas. They are the mechanics of reality. You don't see them, but you feel them. You felt how one person walks into a room and everything shifts. You felt how your mood changes when someone speaks from certainty, from depth. That's not magic. That's alignment with law. You are not here to manipulate reality through tricks or shortcuts. You're here to attune to it so deeply that reality has no choice but to reflect you. That's the real power of psychic development, not to escape the laws, but to master them. To stop reacting to external chaos and start tracing it back to internal structure. Because once you understand the root cause, you can change the outcome every time. When you live by law, you stop gambling. You stop waiting for signs. You become the sign. You walk with the energy of inevitability, not desperation. And it shows. People respond differently. Time bends. Synchronicities increase. Not because the universe is being generous, but because you're finally tuned to the same frequency it's been broadcasting all along. The moment you stop believing that your life is dictated by chance is the moment you start operating at a higher level of reality. From here, cause is no longer external, it's internal. You create from alignment, not effort, from intention, not force. That's where the psychic gifts you've been chasing begin to unlock, because you're no longer fighting the current. You've become it. Most people fear this kind of power because it comes with responsibility. If everything in your life is shaped by your inner state, then you can't blame the world anymore. You can't pretend to be a victim of fate. You have to own your frequency. But within that ownership lies total freedom, because once you understand how the machine works, you can stop being a passenger. You take the controls. Here's the irony. What we call supernatural is usually just natural law misunderstood or ignored. Clairvoyance, intuition, synchronicity. These aren't glitches in the matrix. They're glimpses into how the matrix actually runs. You are already plugged into the laws. The question is, are you aligned with them or fighting them? And if that thought makes you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is a sign that the truth is pressing up against the limits of your old identity. Let it break through. Because the moment you realize life responds to law, not luck, you stop waiting. You start commanding. Awakening isn't an event. It's a return to the seat of power you never truly lost, only forgot. Because the truth is, you already are everything you've been seeking. The psychic potential you crave isn't something to be added. It's something to be uncovered, stripped of noise, of programming, of doubt. Your mind was always designed to pierce illusion. Your energy was always meant to influence reality. You've simply been trained to mistrust it, to filter it through disbelief, to silence it with logic that only serves the system, not the self. This world does not encourage awakening. It encourages management of symptoms, of expectations, of behavior. It rewards those who operate quietly within the lines and punishes those who remember what's possible. But once you see the mechanics of control, once you feel how your thoughts are tuned, how your desires are shaped, how your focus is redirected, you can't unsee it. That's the fracture point. That's when the veil lifts not through force, but through awareness. You realize the system never had real power. It only had your agreement. Reclaiming your psychic self means withdrawing that agreement. Not loudly, not with rage, but silently and steadily. By no longer feeding the identities that keep you small. By no longer anchoring your sense of self in limitations you never chose. By breaking the invisible contracts that keep you performing someone else's idea of reality. This is where everything begins to change. You stop asking for proof and start feeling for resonance. You stop waiting for permission and start listening to the voice that was always buried beneath the noise. The one that whispers not in words, but in knowing. The one that doesn't beg, doesn't bargain, doesn't shout. It just speaks truth clean, direct, undeniable. That voice is your guide, your compass, your lifeline to the deeper architecture of reality. And the more you honor it, the louder it gets. The more you follow it, the clearer the path becomes. Synchronicities aren't accidents. They're confirmations, echoes of a self that already knows the way. The mistake most people make is waiting to feel ready before they begin. But readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. You decide to wake up. You decide to trust your knowing over the rules. You decide to act as the being you are, not the one you were trained to be. That one shift, just one, sends ripples through your entire field. The energy moves differently. Opportunities realign. People start treating you differently, not because you told them to, but because your frequency did. And this is the real beginning of power, when you no longer use your psychic sensitivity to escape life, but to sculpt it, not to bypass the world, but to command it from a higher order of being. You're no longer reacting to circumstances. You're emitting a signal that changes them. You're not reading people, you're reading patterns. You're not hoping for a better future. You're architecting it in real time with thought, feeling, and intent. Now ask yourself, if this is possible, and it is, why haven't you done it yet? What belief still tells you that you're not ready, that you need more time, more signs, more validation? That belief is not truth, it's programming. And you can let it go right now. Not when you've meditated for 30 days, not when your life is perfectly in order. Now. Because power isn't in the future, it's in presence. It's in the exact moment you decide that you will no longer wait to become who you already are. If you've made it this far, you already feel it, the shift, the recalibration. And you know deep down that this isn't just information, it's remembrance. And the question isn't, is this real? The question is, what would change if I acted like it was? This is the path of sovereignty, of psychic clarity, of inner authority that can't be faked or borrowed or bought. And yes, it's uncomfortable at times. It will demand everything that isn't real to fall away. But what you gain in return is immeasurable. A life lived by design, not default. A mind that no longer obeys fear. A spirit that no longer apologizes for its power. The final lie they told you is that awakening is the end of the road. That once you realize the truth, it's over. You've made it. But the truth is, awakening is not an ending, it's a threshold, a point of no return. Because once you see that your thoughts are power, your emotions are voltage, your focus is a sculptor of worlds, you don't just awaken, you evolve. You enter a different way of being, one that doesn't move from survival, but from sovereignty. This is where psychic development stops being about abilities and becomes about responsibility, not the kind imposed by guilt or pressure, but the kind born from clarity. You start to realize every word you speak, every image you hold, every tone you emit, it goes somewhere. It shapes something, whether that's your future, your relationships, or the unseen matrix around you. Nothing you do is neutral. Energy moves, and now you are moving it on purpose. You become deliberate, not rigid, but intentional. You stop living to impress and start living to express. You don't need approval because you felt the clarity of alignment. You don't crave control because you've tasted the flow of surrender. This is not detachment. This is mastery. The psychic doesn't run from chaos. They transmute it. They don't fear emotion. They feel it, decode it, refine it. Because now they know everything is data, everything is signal, everything is feedback from a reality that reflects, not judges. But here's the shift that changes everything. You stop trying to get psychic powers. You realize you are the power. And instead of chasing more, You deepen what already is. You fine-tune your intuition until it's no longer a whisper. It's a compass. You strengthen your vision until your thoughts aren't just visualized. They're received by reality as instructions. You hold presence so precisely that people feel it before you speak. You begin to live from the inside out. The world no longer tells you who you are. You tell it what is real. Not with force, but with frequency. Not with argument, but with embodiment. Your presence becomes your proof. Your field becomes your message. People ask, how do you know things you shouldn't? Or, why do things just seem to work for you? But they're asking the wrong question. It's not about luck. It's about law. It's about resonance. You stopped tuning into noise and started broadcasting signal. And now the world is tuning into you. This is what it means to live beyond humanot, to float above life, but to drop so deeply into it that every interaction becomes a ritual, every challenge becomes a mirror, every day becomes a training ground for refinement. You're no longer just navigating the system, you're rewriting your code, and with it, the code of your reality. So what now? You don't go back to sleep. You go deeper. You teach others not by convincing, but by living. You surround yourself with clarity, with creation, with those who reflect your highest frequency back to you, not to flatter, but to sharpen. And if they don't yet exist, you become the signal that calls them in. Your field builds the new world.